Now pause for a second and really listen to the tone of everything that's unfolding here, because this situation isn't just loud, it's layered. The energy, the tension, the shifting narratives. It all feels like something bigger than a typical internet feud. What started as bars, jabs, and competitive energy has slowly transformed into something that feels personal, complicated, and honestly, a little uncomfortable to watch in real time. It begins with that aggressive, almost taunting delivery. The kind of verse that isn't just meant to entertain, but to provoke. The words hit with intention. There's confidence, there's arrogance, and there's a very direct kind of confrontation embedded in every line. It's not just rap for the sake of rhythm, it's a message, a warning, a statement of dominance. And whether people agree with it or not, one thing is undeniable. It got attention immediately. And that's where the shift starts to become visible. Because while one side of this situation is loud, active, and clearly benefiting from the chaos, the other side feels different. Not necessarily defeated, not publicly collapsing, but quieter in a way that doesn't match what people are used to. That silence is what's making everyone uneasy. It's not explosive. It's not dramatic. It's subtle. And sometimes subtle changes create the loudest reactions. People online picked up on that almost instantly. It wasn't just about what was said in the diss. It was about everything surrounding it. The reactions, the numbers, the movement. Within minutes of that track surfacing, it felt like the entire internet had something to say. Clips were circulating, reactions were piling up, and discussions were happening across every platform. This wasn't a slow burn, it was immediate impact. And then came the numbers. Now, numbers don't lie, and they definitely don't care about feelings. They don't pick sides. They just reflect reality. And the reality in this case was hard to ignore. The track climbed fast, not just gaining traction, but dominating conversations and charts in a way that made it clear this wasn't just noise, it was influence. It landed high, it spread wide, and it stuck. So naturally, people started comparing. On one side, you have momentum, visibility, success that's measurable and undeniable. On the other side, you have presence, but without that same level of impact. And that gap? That's where the scrutiny begins. Because the expectations weren't small. We're not talking about someone unknown or inexperienced. We're talking about a figure who is used to commanding attention, someone who has built a reputation on dominance, confidence, and control. Someone who doesn't usually get overshadowed in any space she enters. So when the energy suddenly feels muted, people notice. And they start asking questions. Not necessarily out of hate, but out of confusion. What's going on? Why does it feel different? Where is that usual intensity? And the more those questions circulate, the more the narrative starts to evolve. Because now it's not just about the music anymore. It becomes about credibility, about authenticity, about whether the success people are witnessing on one side is self-made, or if the stories being told behind the scenes actually hold weight. And this is where things get even more complicated. There's been a long-standing claim floating around that a significant portion of creative output, particularly lyrics, came from someone else entirely. Not just collaboration, but heavy involvement. The kind of claim that, if true, would reshape how people view an artist's legacy. So naturally, people connect the dots. If that level of talent exists behind the scenes, then why isn't it showing up everywhere? Why isn't it consistent across the board? Why does one side seem to be thriving creatively while the other doesn't reflect that same level of output? Those aren't emotional questions, they're logical ones. And logic has a way of dismantling narratives when the evidence doesn't line up. So now, instead of blindly accepting what's been said, people are reevaluating. They're watching what's happening in real time and drawing their own conclusions. And those conclusions aren't always favorable. At the same time, it's important to acknowledge something crucial. This isn't a level playing field. Different industries operate under completely different rules. Excelling in one doesn't automatically guarantee success in another. The discipline, the expectations, the audience, it's all different. So while someone might be untouchable in one arena, stepping into another requires a completely new kind of validation. And right now, that validation is exactly what's being questioned. Because in hip-hop, reputation isn't enough. presence isn't enough. You have to deliver. You have to prove it. Over and over again. And if you don't, the audience doesn't stay quiet, they react. Sometimes harshly, sometimes unfairly, but always loudly. And that pressure? It builds. You can see it in the smallest moments. A workout video becomes more than just a workout video. A simple clip suddenly gets analyzed like it's evidence of something deeper. People aren't just watching what's happening, they're interpreting it, projecting onto it, trying to read between lines that may or may not even exist. A punch thrown at a heavy bag becomes symbolic. A facial expression becomes a headline. A moment of focus becomes a narrative about frustration or emotional weight. And once that interpretation spreads, it becomes almost impossible to control. Because now everyone sees it. Or at least they think they do. That's the power and the danger of public perception. Then, just as things are already spiraling, more layers get added. Statements get made. Interviews happen. And sometimes, it's not even what's said, it's how it's said that changes everything. A simple clarification about a relationship status suddenly shifts the entire tone of the conversation. What people assumed was serious now feels uncertain. What seemed stable now feels questionable. And that disconnect creates discomfort. Because expectations were already built. People had already formed opinions, created narratives, imagined outcomes. And when reality doesn't match that, it feels like something is off. Then comes the visual confirmation that complicates things even further. An image. A detail. Something small, but powerful enough to contradict everything being said. And just like that, the conversation resets. Now it's not just speculation, it's observation. People start piecing things together again, but this time with more skepticism, more doubt, more intensity. Because now, it's not just about what they're hearing, it's about what they're seeing. And what they're seeing doesn't align. So the theories grow. Maybe things aren't as over as they seem. Maybe feelings haven't actually changed. Maybe there's more happening behind the scenes than anyone is admitting. And whether those theories are true or not almost doesn't matter. Because once they exist, they influence perception. And perception in situations like this becomes reality. Then there's the absence. And absence speaks louder than people expect. No appearances together. No shared moments. No visible connection. In a world where everything is documented, where even the smallest interactions get posted, that silence becomes suspicious. It creates space for more questions, more assumptions, more narratives. Because people notice what's missing just as much as what's present. And when everything gets combined, the success on one side, the silence on the other, the mixed signals, the contradictions, it creates a situation that feels unresolved, unfinished, like something is still unfolding. That's what makes it so gripping. Because it doesn't feel like a conclusion. It feels like the middle of a story that hasn't revealed its final twist yet. And that's where everyone is stuck right now. Watching, analyzing, waiting, trying to figure out what's real and what's performance. Is the silence intentional, or is it emotional? Is the success purely artistic, or is it amplified by the drama? Are the relationships genuine, or are they complicated in ways the public isn't meant to fully understand? There aren't clear answers. And maybe that's the point, because the uncertainty is what keeps the conversation alive. It keeps people engaged. It keeps the speculation flowing. It keeps the situation from fading away, like so many other viral moments do. Instead, it lingers. It evolves. It grows. And until something definitive happens, something that clears the air or completely flips the narrative, this situation is going to stay exactly where it is. Right in the spotlight. Unresolved.